we thought we were going to have a really small Shabbat. We're like, okay, it's spring break. We're not usually here for Shabbat. We'll have a small Shabbat. Turns out we ended up with 50 people on Friday night. So it was not small at all. I kind of started getting an inkling on like Thursday that it's going to be around like 30. And then I just set up for like 35. And of course, we just always pull out more tables. So we ended up with a beautiful big Shabbat. But Purim, a lot of people left today or left on Shabbat. It's Saturday itself, but we're still going to be in town for Purim. So I hope everyone has some sort of Purim celebration lined up wherever they are. Levi, hold on one second. Hold on, let me just get Levi situated. He's trying to reach his friend. Levi, that's you. That's Mendel calling you. I'm going to pause the recording first better. There we go. So I hope everyone's like Purim preps are underway in a smooth way. And I hope if you're having the kids home, spring break, is Nathan home, Susan? Is he home?
Just me?
Yeah, is he home for spring break?
He'll be back on Tuesday.
Okay, so a different student, I guess. Is he still in Aggieland?
No, he's over at his dad's for a day.
Okay.
I was out of town last week. I went to my younger son did a scout thing this week, and then I went to.
Nice. Okay, good. All right. So as you can imagine, there is always a juggle, and a lot of kids are out, but we're gonna get jump right in where we were last week. So, anyone remember last week we talked about the 3 different characters in the Tanya, right? The tzaddik, the person who's completely aligned, their insides and the outsides, and it's all with what their potential is, what God wants out of them, no struggle, no internal like, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? Really kind of and we said either the tzaddik was born that way or the tzaddik actually, sorry about that, genetically is hardwired that way, or the tzaddik, or the tzaddik either is genetically hardwired that way or works on themselves to refine themselves so that their animal soul is kind of converted and becomes, they basically have like this dual godly soul, okay? Or superpower godly soul. So we said that. And then we said the Rasha is someone who has an internal struggle and then expresses that internal struggle according to what the animal soul wants. So that means the thought, speech, and action, which are the garments of the godly soul and the animal soul, are kind of being directed by the animal soul. And then the third category we talked about is the Beinani, and we said the Beinani, this book is actually called Sefer Shel Beinani, the book for the person in the middleman, intermediate. And we said that the Beinani struggles has an internal struggle in like thought, speech, or action. How should I speak? How should I think? How should I react, act? And though their expression of that struggle is according to the altruistic, godly, potential, Torah, spiritual mindset. Meaning they have the struggle, there is that battle inside, should I, shouldn't I, can I say this, can I not say this? Is it the right thing to say? And we can all imagine, I can imagine as parents, we've all encountered this multiple times where we're like, our gut reaction, our instinctive reaction is one thing, like what I want to say, and then what I actually say. What's the developmentally appropriate thing? What's the psychologically sound thing? What's the nice thing? What's the healthy or emotionally boosting thing, right? So we can really relate to that on this front, but it's harder to relate to sometimes in our thoughts. But I think we can all somehow relate to the idea that that active thought, where sometimes we'll go down a negative path in the thought, like a mind cycle, or like a journey in thinking, and that active thought we can choose to stop and redirect it to be in a positive, healthy way. Okay. Now, actions, we certainly can think of multiple examples where I could react 2 different ways. And at any given moment, even if there's an internal conflict, I can override the instinctive, selfish mode, and I can choose to operate from a higher place, right? A more godly place, a more transcendent place, a more altruistic place, a place that's aligned with my potential, okay? So I challenged everyone at the end of last class, now with that framework, I challenged everyone to see if they could have more Beinani moments where we struggle on the inside, but the result and the outcome is our potential. Did anyone have a moment like that this week?
I wasn't there last week, but I watched the video, and something that I was kind of getting a little frustrated with is my son plays on the high school tennis team. He plays doubles, and his doubles partner broke his racket at the end of January. And so he's been using my son's other racket, because all tennis players have a backup racket in case their strings break or the racket breaks when they're playing. So now it's been 5 weeks, and this other kid hasn't gotten a new racket yet. And I was getting really kind of frustrated because, if they're playing and the racket breaks, they're just kind of out of luck.
Right.
And I finally, I'd asked the kid about, have you gotten a new racket? It's a kid that can afford a racket. And, I'm getting one. And I finally just, instead of saying something else to the kid, I just let the coach deal with it. Because I just was going to say something I was probably going to regret saying.
Right. That's amazing. Because knowing our limits, like knowing this is not going to go well. I see also sometimes, and I thank you for sharing, Susan, but sometimes I see as a parent, there's certain times, there's certain interactions with certain children that they're going to trigger a certain reaction within your emotional spectrum, and your reaction is not going to be the sound one. And Yessie and I will always be like, I'm like, yes, tag, you're it. Tag, you're it means I'm removing myself from the situation, and this is yours right now. Not because I don't think I should deal with it, but because I feel like right now, knowing my reaction, it's not going to be what's best.
Right.
So I think, Susan, what you're saying is amazing. Knowing where you're holding as a mom, knowing how you feel about this situation with tennis, like 5 weeks, come on, get your act together.
Right.
And knowing that your reaction will not be godly, altruistic, holy, positive, you delegated. And that's really that's actually a perfect example. Varda, do you want to share with us something practical or interesting? Go ahead.
So my daughter had a class event about 25 minutes away from our house. And she has a girl in her class down the street that whenever there's a program, we always carpool. And so I called her mother and I said, do you want to carpool? And she's like, well, I get home and I honestly don't have time. I want to go to my exercise class and I really don't know what to do because I really don't have time for this. And I'm like thinking to myself, okay, well, if I don't have a way for my daughter to get there and back, I'm going to do it myself. But it'll mean me spending, over an hour in the car, and it's not fair. And I was really upset. And I ended up finding someone else to carpool with. She lives about 10 minutes away, but it was still worth it. And really, I was fighting with myself because I'm like, she should just find some way for her daughter to get there or her daughter won't go. And on the other hand, I actually sent her a text and I said, I'm carpooling with so-and-so and I can give her a ride there. And she said she doesn't mind bringing your daughter home. And I was really proud of myself because I really did not feel like doing that. But I was like, you know what? I'm going anyways. And maybe it really is hard for her. And it was frustrating, but I just kind of fought with myself. But one thing I want to say is in the car on the way to carpool, I told my daughter about this struggle that I had. Not to show off or anything that I'm this holy person, but just to show her that it's okay to struggle like this. And then it's okay to do the right thing, even if you don't want to,
I think that's amazing because you turned it into a teachable moment. First of all, we all totally could relate to as if your time is less precious than that lady's time, right?
Right.
Our mind right away goes to this place my time's not important. When I don't need to work out. When I'm not tired after work. All those. I'm not saying that that's what went through your head. I'm saying that's what would have, let's say, gone
through
your head.
It is.
Right. And that's probably what would have gone through my head. Right, my time's less precious, or the half hour is not as much of a schlep for me. But on the other hand, you could have just taken your kid and not thought about our child. But of course, the nicer, holier, more altruistic thing to do is offer the ride. And I think I'll take it the next level. I think the fact that you pointed out to your child, I don't see that at all as bragging at all. I think it's called a teachable moment. And I think you're role modeling for your child what it means to have those vanity moments, what it means to struggle, what it means to be a human being. And I think often when we do that, we actually give our kids the biggest gift. because our kid, there is no doubt that your daughter will have those internal debates and challenges. She has them now, right?
Right.
We all do. That's what the author is, in a way, it's fascinating. In a way, the author is normalizing the struggle that we're going through. And he's saying, this is real, this is part of the process, this is exactly how it's intended to be, and you're made this way, okay? Which we'll talk about shortly. There's some interesting text that comes up in the next little section. Normalize reality. What you do with that reality, you have this tool called Lev. Your mind can control your emotions, and that's actually what you did. And you're modeling to your daughter what that looks like. And Susan, I would share that with your son, because it's so, our kids, you know, I remember hearing the line, don't worry, your children won't listen to what you say, worry they'll see what you do. Meaning, and here's an example, positive, like I'm feeling, and I actually, my kids know, for better or worse, I'm very honest with them. So I feel like in a way, we're showing them that we're thinking, growing, evolving humans. And so we're role modeling what that thinking, evolving, growing human looks like and what that seems day to day. Karen, do you want to share? Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if you can, my dogs may stop barking.
It's okay.
So I come from a very dysfunctional family. And the other day I was at the grocery store and saw a family member of mine who has had some very not nice things to say about me lately. So my initial reaction was to, kind of be rude, but I took a deep breath and I thought, and I'm like, I'm the bigger person. I went up to her, I greeted her, I, chit-chatted with her. I walked away and I actually felt calm. And for me, that was a big...
Huge.
Yes.
You know what's interesting? What you're saying is huge, because it's the little victories that actually build up the big character change. It's
right.
Not like tomorrow I'll always react perfectly to every given situation. It's not like that, right? But it means that I know I'm empowered to make one more, step in the right direction or positive reaction. And it really is from the little victories. It's that then bit by bit, we actually transform ourselves. And I think that in a way, that's what the author was teaching us in those past few chapters, is it's those little moments and those little successes that then build up, and then we become more refined from them. So what I want to do is, there's an interesting example that's given. Let's look at text, because we ended off with learning exercise 3 on page 37. That's where we ended last time. And we talked about, again, the Moshe, the mind controlling the emotions. But let's look at that example. It's an interesting example. And read it and let me know what your thoughts are on it, on page 37. Okay, you see this interesting experience? Okay, sit and don't allow your mind to go to anything negative. Sure, no problem. I could do that for 60 seconds, right? Like I could not want to be negative or do something negative, no problem. But can I think of holiness for 60 seconds straight with no other thoughts popping into my mind? Can I say the Shema again and again and again, and any stray thought that comes into my mind, just like send it flying? And why is this example I find interesting? Because it just, you want to try it? Right? Do you think this is an easy thing to do?
I don't think it's easy.
I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's easy. I think to avoid doing something bad for a minute, I can do, but to focus on solely good or holiness or things that are spiritual for even a minute, not easy. Because our minds, there's a lot going on in our minds. And there's going to be a lot of triggers and a lot of different reactions. And we could be focusing on one thing, and then all of a sudden a car comes by, a noise rings in the background, a phone call rings with a number on caller ID, and suddenly we're like, right? Our brain in a second is someplace else. So while we can get to that Beinoni state of mind, not so easy staying there. Okay, so let's read text 9. Susan, do you mind reading text 9 for us on page 38?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Now the state of being how do you say it? Beinoni?
Beinoni.
Beinoni.
The word bain means in between.
Okay.
Beini or bene, like bain is in between. So the Beinoni is the in-betweener, for lack of a better term.
Now the state of being Beinoni is attainable by every person, and each person should strive after it. For every person can at any moment be a Beinoni, because a Beinoni does not abhor evil. That is something that is subject to the feeling of the heart. It may vary from time to time.
Pause for a second. I think it's so interesting. The author is saying you may not feel this way, like your feelings may not align with this, okay? But it is possible. Keep reading, sorry.
But a Beinoni merely adheres to the injunction to, quote, turn away from evil and do good. In actual practice, in deed, speech, and thought, and it is in these matters that everyone is given the choice, ability, and freedom to act, speak, and think as he chooses, even when it is diametrically opposed to the desire of his heart.
Okay, so when we are in the Beinoni state of mind, what we're actually saying is, so here the author was saying that there is an injunction or a command or an idea that we see in Psalms, turn away from evil and do good. Okay, so if it's said in Psalms, there's a pretty good chance that it's something that's seen as a doable thing. So that's what we're saying. Is it easy? No, but, and here's where it's a really empowering thing, we have the ability, and not just the ability, but also the freedom to align our thoughts, speech, and action with the best version of ourselves, the best potential, with what God's will is, even if, and here is where it's like, so not what, a lot of modern day pop psychologists will say, even if it's opposite of what you feel, right? You, Varda, did not feel like giving the girl a ride. You had to override that inherent feeling. Susan, you felt frustrated, like the person was taking advantage of the situation. Get your act together. I'm also busy. I can get a racket if I need, right? But you like, I'm going to override this internal feeling and I'm going to still do the best. And certainly, Karen, in your case, we can all understand what it means, functional or dysfunctional, no matter what it means. We can certainly understand get necessarily a member of the family, but anyone understands the idea of having someone who is toxic, and they're a source of toxicity, and they're a source of frustration, and having that toxic person, and you're confronted with them in a public space, and how you choose to react, we can all, I could for sure understand, and I'm sure everyone here can agree, that it takes a lot of choice, a lot of intentionality, a lot of self-control and self-mastery. So the question is how we navigate this and where we go from here, because the next story that's given in exercise number 4 on page 39, it's a classic example, right? Someone is on a bus, she leaves her $20,000 in her purse, and she gets off the bus stop, right? Money's gone, calls the police, they contact the bus company, a man shows up at the police station with the purse of money. It's a wonderful story, right? Okay, obviously the old lady's relieved. We can imagine the story happening in life. And they asked to the man, were you tempted to keep it? At tzaddik, what do you think a tzaddik's reaction would be?
No.
A tzaddik, no, not even tempted, not my money, doesn't belong to me. A tzaddik will probably actually be thrilled that they have a chance to do this mitzvah of hashavat aveda, returning that which is lost. A rasha wouldn't have shown up at the police station. It'd have been like, really should give money back to the old lady, but there's a vacation in the Bahamas with my name on it. I really need a break. Okay? The Beinoni is going to struggle, but going to do what's right. And if you look at the end, the Beinoni, right, the man says, I found the money, and the first thing that popped into my head is I'm going to pay off my car, and I'm going to take a trip to the Bahamas. I had to force myself to go down to the police station and return it. So what is he? He's a Beinoni. Because at the end of the day, he did what was right. And I actually think for ourselves, even with our children, first of all, with ourselves, even when we struggle, and sometimes we really like to define ourselves by that struggle. We don't even like to define ourselves by like the success that we have. We're like, fine, I succeeded, but why am I still struggling with this, right? Some of us are very hard on ourselves, even internally with those things. So to give ourselves space and understand that at any given moment we're making a choice and we have the ability to override it and to educate us to our children in the same light, I think is really, really powerful and really, really, really empowering. The question is, with this mindset, that the mind can control the emotions, which we talked about last class. That's tool number one that the algebra is going to give us, is understanding we can control how we feel. Now the question goes, can we finish up with our time with the Alter Rebbe? Now we know we can, because there's a bunch more chapters left. Okay? But what's the challenge of only having this tool in our toolbox for self-mastery? Can you think of any potential challenges or pitfalls of only having this in our arsenal of self-refinement or actualization of our potential? It's flawed. It's good. It works. But can it work all the time with every decision, every day, every circumstance? Nope. As a matter of fact, it's exhausting. When I feel one way inside and I feel something and I have to behave differently, it's not comfortable. It's just not comfortable. So there's a story of a young boy who was learning these concepts, these ideas, this teenager, and he said to his teacher, like, who's the real me? Am I the the one who's sitting here and focusing, or am I this young teenager who wants to go party or do whatever I want to do? Right? And at that moment when I'm sitting here and I'm focused and I'm in the right place, that's where I'm at. The other moments, who am I? Right? So what the child is actually reflecting is that the conflict is still, the struggle is still difficult. And we could all think, as I'm sure we all thought of examples of how we were more of a Beinoni this week. We had more of a Beinoni moment. I bet, I know for myself, I could definitely think of examples where I wasn't. Right? Day to day. So the problem with this is that we have to, the Alter Rebbe is now going to give us a different tool. And the other tool is going to be how to actually change and develop new feelings inside. Because this tool alone is requiring a lot of self-control, impulse control. And impulse control consistently is exhausting because I feel one way and I'm always in the battle. So the question is, how do I override that? So we know, first section of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe is giving with, okay, here's the battle, understand the conflict, this is where it's coming from. Second one, the Alter Rebbe is giving us tool number 1, impulse control, mochshalat alalev, your mind can control your emotions. But we still fail, and we still struggle, so we need more tools. What are the tools we need, okay? So I'm just trying to figure out my camera over here. What are the tools we need? So look at page 40. It's kind of going to wrap up this section, then we'll jump right into the next section. Anyone want to read ideas 1, 2, 3, 4? There's 7 ideas here. Anyone want to read? Summarizing the last little section.
What page?
On page 40.
I can read.
Perfect, thank you.
The 3 garments, thought, speech, and action, can only be controlled by one of the 2 souls at any given time, and the two souls vie for control like two kings over the same kingdom.
Okay.
Continue.
Introduction. Two souls, they both want control. Who's in control? Only one can have it. Like we said, only one active thought can go through our mind at one time. Only one word can come out, and our actions, we have to choose. So that's very clear. It's one's being expressed. Next.
A tzaddik is one whose godly soul is completely in control, while the animal soul lies completely dormant.
Okay.
A rasha is one whose animal soul at times finds expression in the soul's garments.
That means they're struggling, and the rasha expresses it in thought, speech, or action. Go ahead.
While the Beinoni's internal struggle mirrors that of the rasha, the Beinoni is identical to the tzaddik's in behavior.
You understand now where the cognitive dissonance and the pressure comes from? Inside he feels like a rasha. Outside he's acting like a tzaddik. That's tension. Keep reading.
Right. We can choose our thoughts, speech, and actions, the garments of our soul.
So right with tool number 1, which is Ma'ashalat Alev. So I was walking out with one of my daughters, and this daughter is mild. I have one daughter who's very scared of dogs, and one mildly had a negative experience with a dog. Anyway, walked out, got caught up in the hype of like the other kid being scared of a dog, and like started like, oh my gosh, there's a dog. And I'm like, it's fine. You know the dog. The dog is a calm dog. The dog is a friendly dog. Why are you freaking out? And the child said, I don't know why I'm freaking out. I actually don't know why I'm freaking out. Why am I freaking out? I said, well, you're getting caught up. And the child said, well, how do you prevent yourself from getting caught up? Great question, right? And I said, do you remember we talked about that in Tanya, the Rebbe teaches about Ma'ashalat Alev, the mind can control the emotions? And the child said, yeah. I said, that's exactly it. So as that feeling is rising to the surface of panic or of fear, you have to override it internally and remind yourself, I know this dog. This dog is a friendly dog. This dog is not going to hurt me. And develop that internal dialogue so you don't freak out. So I'm not sure if I shared this story with you, but I feel like I may have, but I'm going to share it with you. I hope I didn't until now, but I'm going to quick briefly. So I didn't swim until I was like 25. When I was like about 6 years old, I almost drowned, and I was petrified of water, of pools. I just was scared. I would go in water, I wouldn't be able to relax. And finally at 25, I said, that's it. I'm over. I have 3 kids. I want to know how to swim. I want to be able to save my child's life. I don't want this. I'm done. And I told Yassim, like, for this birthday, anniversary, I don't want any presents. I want swim lessons. I got swim lessons, and I taught myself how to swim. I mean, I had an instructor teach me how to swim at 25. And I remember that Yassi and I were at our 18th anniversary. We went away to Cancun for a few days. And there was a zip line into this really cool watering hole. So first of all, I'm there in my like modest bathing suit. I think I was the only one like not in a bikini. So I already stood out. And then as I'm zip lining into this giant natural spring, as I'm letting go of the zip line, I'm like, how long is this? 2 seconds. It's a very short, right? You swing, you jump, that's it. As I'm sliding across and about to dive in, suddenly that inner feeling of panic of, I don't know how to swim, I don't know how to swim, or I'm going to drown. Like literally it brought me back to that moment when I was 6 or 7, that water being completely consumed with water. And I had to mentally override being like, no, you know how to swim. You're not going to drown. You know how to swim. So and of course I landed in the water. I swam. I was fine. Again, this is a whole, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. How long is this whole experience? Not even 60 for sure, not. So as I was explaining to my daughter, the idea of Ma'ashalat Alev, the ability, I gave her this example of the story, which is why, Varda, I think it was amazing that you chose to share this example of the story with your daughter, because I think I could tell my daughter, you have the ability to override your emotions with your mind, or I could show her an example that I too as an adult have to learn how to do that. And that it's something that's going to be recurring, but it's not enough. And we'll see soon why it's not enough. But the idea of Ma'ashalat Alev, that the mind can control the emotions, is just a tremendous gift. Okay, if you don't mind reading 6 and 7, Varda, you did such a good job. I appreciate it.
Thought as a garment of the soul does not include impulsive, tangential thoughts that pop into our minds and intrude against our will. Rather, the garment of the thought refers to thoughts upon which we consciously choose to focus.
Right, so remember we talked about it. How could Alter Rebbe suggest that we can control thoughts? That sounds ridiculous. No, the Alter Rebbe is saying not the impulsive little thoughts that pop into our mind. The ones we choose to, and I think we know this story well, we chew it over and we chew it over and it takes up a lot of space, right? A lot of real estate. Those are the thoughts Alter Rebbe is saying, guess what? Those you can control. The random thought pops into your mind. Why me? I'm so frustrated. This is not okay. Why is this happening again? That person is so offensive. Those can't necessarily control. What you do with them, do you let it go into this active garment of thought? That's where control is we have. Okay? And number 7.
Everyone has the potential to achieve the rank of Beinoni by actively choosing which soul, godly or animal, is allowed garments of expression.
So that idea may seem a little overwhelming, but it should also feel empowering. Empowering because we have a choice. Empowering because every human being has the option to operate at a higher level of existence. We all have the potential. And that should be a very empowering thing. So now what we're going to do is feel free between now and next week. I think we have class next week.
I don't know.
We don't. I don't know if we do. Officially, we don't have it on the schedule. I may end up switching something because when I originally, well, I don't know what's going to be with our travel plans, but my daughter is entering this, there's this extra learning, international learning competition, and she entered it, and she's going for a large Shabbat and doing a little girls trip to New York for it. So that Sunday, I think I canceled class, but they ended up switching the dates from the original date, and now it may be canceled anyway because of the virus, so I don't know. I will keep you posted on the next 1 or 2 weeks. But either way, feel free to read the letters or the articles in between. I think what the articles do, they do a really good job driving home some of the points from a different perspective. And so they're really they're extra reading for your interest or benefit. Feel free to, enjoy or partake on your own in those. But I would love to do is, since we have another 20 minutes, I feel like we could at least take a stab at the next section 4, sink or sink. And section 4 is now going to give us more tools because we need more tools, because just understanding self-mastery through the lens of control, impulse control, is in fact not enough. Susan, do you mind reading on page 45?
Yeah, no.
The introduction to this next section?
I was just confused because it says lesson 3 and you were saying section 4, so I was just
I'm sorry. You know what? Because this is I'm sorry. It's the book's lesson 3.
Okay.
Not the same for us because we're operating at a different speed.
Okay.
We did one introduction lesson. Yeah, go ahead.
Would you like to be a perfect person in just 30 days? Are you looking for a pill to solve your problems? Or have you made peace with the fact that meaningful change is a process that requires lots of patience, hard work, and dedication? Whatever your preference, we've got something for you in this lesson. Tanya presents 2 methods, the quote, quick fix for instant inspiration and the long-term solution for radical fundamental change. Both are important, and we'll find out when each method is most useful, as well as the advantages and disadvantages of each.
Okay. I think that what you're saying, that outline makes sense, right? We could say imagine, I'm giving this example, a crash diet, wonderful. I may lose all my weight, but I haven't really changed myself or my mindset or my attitude towards food. So short term, I may get the results I want. Long term, I may end up falling right back into that pattern. right? So I'm using that analogy because I think it's something we can relate to. I can relate to it. Personally, I'm not throwing shade anywhere, but for me, that I can relate to that, right? And I think I only did a crash diet once in my life. It was once, and I looked great for about a month, and then, you know.
Then you're hungry.
And I was hungry. And I was probably angry too. Because whatever. We all can understand how this works. So basically looking onward, the Algebra now is going to kind of, remember we said this is like a one-on-one with the Algebra, like a life coach session. It's like Yechidas with Algebra, where he was like, okay, you got this. Number one, you understand the problem. Number two, you understand that you have the ability for impulse control and you can utilize it, and understanding the realistic expectation of not being a tzaddik and not having like perfect standards. You get it? Okay, great. Now we're going to move onward. We're going to give you more tools in your arsenal, because it is not good enough to just always be controlling or biting your tongue. You're ever in a relationship, you're ever in an environment, whether it's a teacher or a coworker or a boss or a child or a teenager, where you're constantly biting your tongue and not saying what you want to say, not healthy. Not healthy and not either sustainable. Okay, it's going to come out. So the Algebra is now going to give us tools to actually change something else with us. So let's just jump right into like basically how to make that behavioral change from the inside out so that our emotions are more congruent, they're more aligned. And Algebra is going to suggest it's by actually changing our emotional realities internally, and he's going to give us practical tools on how to do that, because like we said, impulse control is not enough. Okay, you don't want to just teach your child to control themselves from biting, right? You also want to teach your child, let's say I'm going with an example of a young child. What do you want to teach your child? Just say no to drugs? Or you want to teach your child, this is what will happen if you go down the route of, this is what happens to people who take drugs. This is what problems it could cause you. This is, because you want to change how your child feels internally about drugs. You don't want to just tell your child, okay, just say no, just say no, just say no, just say no. That's great. But what point when drugs is not good for you? Really? All my friends look, they're having a good time. Looks good for them. Everyone's fine. It's just marijuana. It's just weed. It's legal. It's not legal. Whatever it is. If we want to change how our child feels about something, we understand we have to give them more ammunition. We have to give them more knowledge, more to empower them. So the Algebra is going to empower us with understanding more tools. Onward. Okay. I don't love this example that the book gives, and you could read it for yourself. You'll see on page 46. I don't love it, but I can understand it. I guess it's just not like an example I can totally connect with. So the idea being is that like you have an aunt that's coming to visit. She's going to stay with you for a week. Maybe you're not so thrilled that she's coming. You don't really have such a connection to the aunt, but your mom starts like pull up old videos of like, this is you and your aunt. Your aunt told you when you were a baby, and this is you and your aunt eating ice cream together, and this is when your aunt took you to the park. So basically showing you kind of changing your emotional relationship with that person. And then what happens? Then you'll feel differently about your aunt. Then the visit or the nuisance of your aunt being in your space, in your room, or having to drive the aunt where you need to, will feel a little bit more okay with, because you've changed how you feel about the situation. So the example I do like that I really, really relate to is we moved to, Yessie and I are married for 21 years. This summer will be 22. And when we moved to college, since the day I met him, he never cared about sports, like not even this much, ever. All that typical, like, Super Bowl Sunday or, the football widows, like I never understood it because it was totally, as a matter of fact, I think there was a point where I was more into like basketball than he was. Like I followed the Yankees and he could care less, like it was irrelevant. So I never understood that, but it was just never part of our reality. And then when we moved to College Station, what happens in Aggieland? Susan,
Yeah, because there's nothing else to do there either.
Football. Everyone's into football. It's a religion. It is the Aggie fans, okay? Our stadium holds 115,000 people. And it's full every weekend. They're building a new parking lot to house the RVs that come down for the football games. Okay? I don't know how much few million are invested in changing Kyle Field. The band, actually, when we came to I remember when we went to visit the president of the university at a certain point, and he showed us his office, and he's like, you have to understand, the first, like, years ago, he's like, the president, the football coach was on the top floor in the penthouse, and the president of the university was like somewhere, a building, a spot, an office. Football is huge. The university is huge, and football is a very important part of the university's culture. Suddenly, guess what? My husband knows about sports. He knows about football. Does he know about sports because he loves football? He loves his Aggies. And because he loves his Aggies, he knows what's going on with the team. Now, not to the extent I would say that, like, you know, I still don't think he's a diehard fan. And I think our teenage boys are, you know, the younger boys are a little bit more on top of the sports reality here. But I like that example more because it really shows how when you feel something about, like, you could change how you think about something because of your emotions, right? In this case, he cares about Aggies and loves Jewish Aggies so much. He knows football is important to them. Therefore, okay, you know, we'll have a, you know, maroon and white Chabad, or we'll have a, you know, whatever. You want to watch the game, we'll do a kosher tailgate. The game that falls out during the week, any game that falls out during the week, when the game is on Thanksgiving in College Station, we'll do a Thanksgiving tailgate because we care about tailgating. No, not really. It's not my thing. I mean, I like food, but I'd rather eat my food in my house, like, right? But we love Aggies, so we adapt. So that's a perfect kind of example that I think of is a little bit better that relates. Like, I relate to it more than the, like, aunt example, because it's like, I get it. Like, you know, or you think of it this way, like, and I don't want to say this because, like, you know, the Astros were really in the doghouse, but I know you Dallas people, you're into your teams, your Mavs are a big deal, right? So you don't, even if, let's say, you're not a huge Mavs fan, right? But let's say the Mavs made it, and now they're, you know, March Madness, they do well, you know, or the football team, Dallas Cowboys are going into the World Series, not World Series, Super Bowl.
I'm laughing because you don't know your sport.
No, I do know the Dallas Cowboys.
Because the Mavericks are professional, and March Madness is for college.
See, I really don't know. You could see that I really don't know. I know March Madness because I know my students are into March Madness. What's it called in basketball?
Well, March Madness is the college basketball tournament.
Okay.
It's not the professional tournament.
So all I hear. So what's the professional tournament? There's no term for it.
I don't know if there's a term for it, but it's not March Madness.
All right. See, I know March Madness because that's what I know, because I know my Aggies. That's all I know.
Right.
But I know the Dallas. I know that I know because my kids are Texans fan, and that's Houston. And I know Astros is Houston. So I know a few but you know what I will? The Astros is a perfect example. It's a little salty. I'm a little uncomfortable talking about the Astros because they cheated and all that stuff. But the Astros, every game of the World Series was being broadcast on Chabad. Guaranteed. But the funny thing is, bit by bit, the hype seeps in. And even kids who couldn't care about baseball were getting into it. Why? The energy, the hype, they love Houston, they love their city. It's like a certain energy that rises to the surface. So that's, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain, basically, using those analogies, how that plays out in our life. Okay? Not using sports. Alter Rebbe doesn't use sports, but we'll talk about it. We'll make more sense in 2 minutes. I see that as a perfect example of, like, something that you don't really care about, but, like, you can change the way you feel about it because of another factor. Either your city pride or you love your Jewish Aggies, so you can change how you feel about it. Okay, so let's look at text 1. We're gonna do a little bit more. We'll do, like, probably about three texts, and then we'll stop. Text 1, does anyone want to read?
I can read.
Thank you, I appreciate
important
it.
Principle regarding the divine service of the Benoni is to govern and rule the animal nature by intellectually contemplating the greatness of the infant, so as to create through understanding a spirit of knowledge and awe of God in his mind, which will cause him to turn away from evil. And a love of God in his heart will cause him to cleave to him by fulfilling the precepts of the Torah.
Okay, So read also text 2 if you don't mind, because we're going to compare and contrast them.
Furthermore, one must know an additional important principle of the Benoni service of God. Even if one's intellect and understanding are incapable of producing a revealed love of God in his heart, as long as he comprehends the greatness of the infinite, this is completely acceptable. For it is this appreciation that leads him to engage in the Torah and mitzvot.
Okay, so what Salter is saying over here with these 2 quotes is, number one, if we want to get ourselves to do what we should do, if we intellectually get our mind to that place, right? If we intellectually understand that God is infinite and that what God wants for us is what's best for us, or like I want to stay connected to this infinite source, then that may be enough to change how I feel about a certain thing. Meaning, in order to develop enough of an emotional shift so that I can control my impulse, I can try to intellectually understand that when I'm doing my, like, what's best or the best thing to do, like if I'm really in awe of godliness and spirituality, then maybe I can get there. Okay? And that may be enough. However, or even more so, we understand that even thinking critically, why are we doing this? Right, but I have 6 minutes left and you're not supposed to interrupt. And no, you aren't, but you are. You're not trying to, but you are. Okay, thank you. And you can please take that to the charger so it doesn't die. Thank you. Thank God. You know what? They're here. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. They were definitely, everyone was told there's no disturbing. Remember, there's no disturbing. It's okay. So the idea being is we could change the way we feel about something, like intellectually meditate and understand the greatness of God and his potential. Then I have a godly soul, and my godly soul has its potential and how that manifests itself. And I could change how I feel inside. What's the problem with that? Is that enough of a solution to never struggling or not struggling or overcoming the struggle? Anyone have any thoughts about that? Is it enough? Meaning care enough about what God wants of you that you don't, that you operate the way he wants. Is that enough?
No.
Why? Why isn't it enough?
Because we have an animal soul.
Out there is saying, but that love is latent. It's hidden in your heart. Why is it in your heart? Because it's a part of you. You are part of God. You have this godly soul within. Your godly soul within is a part of God itself. You have it. It's a part of you. So tap into it, understand it academically, intellectually, emotionally. Get to a place where you understand that that's who you are and that's your potential. That's okay. So don't struggle. No. As Barta said, absolutely not. Because we have an animal soul. And the animal soul is going to challenge us. So let's look at text 3. Varda, do you mind reading text 3?
Sure.
Thank you. On page 49.
To arouse a love which remains hidden in the heart is very easy and very near to every person who has a brain. For his mind is under his control, even if his heart is not. And he can meditate with it as he pleases on any subject. Thus, if he uses it to contemplate the greatness of the Almighty, he will inevitably generate in his mind at least a love of God and cleave to him through the performance of his commandments and the study of his Torah.
Okay. What is the Alter Rebbe suggesting here? So first of all, the Alter Rebbe is making a statement that this is easy. Not easy, but he says very near. Remember in the beginning we said that the Alter Rebbe said that this whole book is based on a premise, quoting Moses, that this idea, this connection to Torah and potential is very near. It's in your heart. in your heart, in your mind, in your actions, you can do it. It's not far, it's not abstract, it's not distant, it's very near, it's very close to you. So Alter Rebbe open to that idea. So it's no surprise that Alter Rebbe is saying that within you, you have a part of God, you have this internal idea. Tap into it, meditate about it, think about it, and then it will lead you to a place that your behavior is aligned. Okay? This is the first way. It's called the long way. The long way, what's the long way? The long way is to think, to change how you feel about something through conscious, either meditation, thought, introspection, etc. But it takes a long time. Okay? The next way that Alter Rebbe is going to introduce to us is the short way. So there is actually a story. Where does Alter Rebbe get this idea of the long way or the short way? So really, I don't want to confuse. I'm going to say it, but it's called the longer, shorter way. It takes much longer to get there, but the results are more everlasting. Or the shorter, longer way. Impulsively, I could shift the way I am. I could change. I could get there, but it doesn't last. It's like a crash diet. Short results, short term, may not last, or long-term changing, working with a nutritionist, changing how I feel, changing my knowledge base, etc. There's an advantage and disadvantage to both. And we're going to delve into it more next class. The advantage of the short way is that the change is lasting. The disadvantage is it takes a long time to get there. The short way has an advantage that in the moment I could quickly change my action, but long term it's not going to change me as a person. Okay? So the example, I'll end with this because I know we're at 8. The analogy that's given is there was in the Talmud, there's a story of a young boy, a sage, or this gentleman's approaching Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem, and he asks the kid which is the best way to go. The child says, do you want the longer, shorter way or the shorter, longer way? He wants to get there already, so he says, I want the shorter, longer way. Now, if anyone has ever traveled to Jerusalem, you understand that Jerusalem is up on a mountain, okay? As you're driving up the road, your ears start popping, the air changes a little, Jerusalem's very cool, nice crisp air, it's on a mountain. So this man says, the shorter, longer way. So he says, okay, so just go this way, fine. The guy starts going and he sees the path and he starts to climb or whatever. And all of a sudden there's bramble and there's brush and the road is obstructed and he's trying to climb over things and the thorns. He turns back, he can't go, can't make it. It's right there. So he comes back to the kid. He said, okay, so you want the shorter way. That's the shorter, longer way. Short term, right there, right straight through that path. Oh, long term, that's the other way, which is much longer, twisting, turning route, but shorter because it will get you there. You'll get to your destination. So the Alter Rebbe is going to introduce these two methods, the longer, shorter way and the shorter, longer way, which will really, explore a little bit further next week or next class. I'm not sure if it's next week or the week after, pending the virus, the trip to New York, etc. But the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that one is not superior to the other because they both are essential and they both have their place. Okay? So short-term results, long-term results. Short-term tools, long-term tools. If in the long run, text 1, 2, and 3 is saying, if you meditate and you focus on your godly potential and the infinite part that you have within and why you're in this world and all these deep and spiritual, wonderful things, yeah, you'll change and evolve. But we'll see that the Alter will show us that that's not enough. So it's a little bit of a cliffhanger, but we'll continue next week and we'll be in touch. Have a happy Purim, everyone.
Happy Purim.
Thank you.
Any questions? Sorry, I didn't ask. Any questions? Sorry.
Mm-mm.
No? Okay. All right. We'll be in touch.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Barna. Bye,
Bye.
Karen.
Bye.
Bye, Susan.